It's me again. Today's date is January 31st, 2023. It's a Tuesday. I apologize for not being around. Work has been very strenuous, and the past 2 weeks for me were very busy with work and other activities. And now we are in the midst of an ice storm. And I'll say, so far, it's not the worst ice storm I've experienced here. I lost a lot of trees in that ice storm. But the worst is yet to come. It iced a bunch today, and I tried to put a coat on my oldest horse, and she kept running away. I couldn't catch her. She saw that coat in the corner of her eye. She saw me come in with her leash and halter, even just trying to lasso her. I couldn't do it. She ran away. She didn't want anything to do with it. But they don't go in their house. They just look at their house. Oh, that's a nice house. Go in your house. Tell the horse go in her house. So where have I been? I've been trying to make a video about the first S1 that came out on the 23rd. And at the time it came out, I didn't have time to read it. So then I fully read it. And there were some really interesting things on that S1. It didn't give any price for NextBridge. It said, hey, we want to sell 40 million NextBridge shares to qualified investors. We don't have a price or a date, just sometime in 2023. The price on page 30 is to be determined by different variables, namely the market, but it doesn't have anything to do with the oil and gas assets, the value of those assets. And it gives these stipulations and contingencies on page 30. More or less, it gets determined by the market. What kind of market? How many people want to make offers to get these shares? So that came out, and that was really interesting. And I was looking at that, and I was finding interesting bits. There was also a discrepancy in Greg McCabe's shares. So back in the previous S1 from November, the S1A4, Greg McCabe had over 19 million shares. And this latest S1 for these 40 million shares private offering stated that Greg McCabe had 6.8 million shares less, and now he has 12 point something million shares. I'll put it up here. Indeed, there is a discrepancy. A lot of people are quick to jump, did Greg McCabe sell shares? Because he doesn't have shares here and he doesn't have shares here. Because Greg McCabe has shares on this S1, but now 2 months later, there's not as many shares. Where did those shares go? Maybe he did sell some shares. Maybe he transferred his shares to somebody else. Greg McCabe does have a son, Greg McCabe Jr. He could have transferred his shares somewhere else. I wouldn't be so quick to jump on the he sold shares bit quite yet. I'm trying to wait for more information on that. There's a lot of FUD going about that, saying, well, if Greg McCabe sold at 12, which was the highest that MMTLP was, if Greg McCabe sold at 12, clearly he doesn't think the assets are worth that much. Okay. Even if he did sell, it was some. He had quite a few shares. Even if he did sell, he had quite a few shares. He converted his 25% working interest, more or less. There's still 2.5% that I'm trying to find that needs to be accounted for. But he converted 22.5% of Wolfbone, 22.5% into NextBridge shares. I always accounted for that in my calculations of the value of the Oro Grande. Like, what would our share be worth if an oil and gas sale were to happen? That's always been calculated in his interest. So his interest coming over is what I've always anticipated, because the goal of the Oro Grande was to sell it as a package deal, as John Burtis stated in 2019. In July of 2019, John Burtis stated in an interview the goal of the Oro Grande is to sell it in a package deal. Even the S1 states that the other interests coming in, the other working interests, about 10%, give or take. Again, I'm not sure where the 2.5% McCabe interest went. That's getting onboarded as well into NextBridge. And that would give NextBridge a total of about 250 million shares, give or take. I've always accounted for those numbers. That's fine. So here's the next question. And I saw Pro Street's Art's video about him saying that indeed the D1 symbol didn't happen. So I went to go check for myself about the D1 symbol. And I'll pull this video up here. As you can see, there's no one clear way to see the D1 ticker. What you have to do is you have to search for U3. And then I did As the Vice of a Friend 2018 and above because it gives us a very manageable amount of tickers to work with. You select the ticker, U3, and then once you go into that ticker, you uncheck U3, and then you'll see all the halts that came up. The D1 should be the last one. As you can see, this ticker had a D1. And when you do the same process to this other ticker, you also get a D1. Some tickers go back to trading. Okay, there's this code to go back to trading. MMTLP has yet to have a D1. Some people said, well, it takes a few months. This one ticker, look, it got a D1 like within 2 weeks. MMTLP, here's me looking for it. Pull up the U3. Okay, now uncheck the U3. No D1. So indeed, Pro Street Art is correct. There's no D1. The offer comes out. When that offer in the S1 for the $40 million shares came out, I thought it was a ruse to try and move the status of NextBridge/MMTLP, because right now everything's more or less treated as a contra CUSIP. It still is. JP Morgan is treating it like a contra CUSIP. I was told I could bespoke sale my shares once the NextBridge shares were received because it would be a private share and my share, but they're still treating it as a contra CUSIP. And every time I call, they say call back later. So something's not 100% here. I thought maybe that this offering of 40 million shares was one way to proceed with transactions, kind of more or less speed things along. Either, yes, look, we're offering some, as Tony stated, Market Moves Tony, this could be a piecemeal thing where they offer so many shares at one price, then you have a next chunk of shares come in at a different price. But we still don't know how many shares outstanding of MMTLP there are that need to be reconciled. Me and Tony both calculated. We came to the conclusion that between 388 million to about 500 million total shares there are. So quite a few shares need to be reconciled. Subtract 165.5 million. That's a lot of shares that need to be reconciled. It could be double. It could be, more than double the amount of MMTLP that was trading. That was supposed to be on the books. But now, today, we have this delay come out. And the delay is rather interesting. Basically, it says that, the SEC needs more time. And it's to give the SEC time to review. Because we want comments. And we're going to delay the S1. We're going to delay this private offering of shares until you comment. Okay. And then it's going to be until such a time as Simon says okay, and then we'll come out with a new amendment, a new filing like this saying, okay, the delay's over on this date. That's all that this says, basically. They want comments from the SEC, hence they're doing a delay. I'll cite this paper right here. It says that if you don't do the delay, you don't get the SEC comments. If you do this delay, this rule, you get SEC comments. They have time to comment on your S1. And it looks like NextBridge wants that here. They want the comments on the S1. Hence, they're doing a delay. And once SEC comments and everybody's satisfied, then they will come out with a new date and not delay it. It'll be effective. That's my interpretation of this filing. And that's where we are today. Where can we go next? Okay, so we have a few possible outcomes. Really, the outcomes are still the same that they were a month ago at this point. Because there is no D1 and MMTLP still isn't officially deleted or hasn't been shown that's deleted yet, that opens up the possibility that things switch back to MMTLP and it trades. It could trade for those 2 days. I'm not sure. But D1 has gone in effect. So MMTLP is still out there somewhere interdimensionally. It's out there somewhere. And it can be summoned. FINRA can do the incantation to summon MMTLP, give us back those 2 trading days to reconcile the shares. It'd have to be at least one, preferably 2 or 3 corporate action notices says it trades only on these days, close out position only, no new positions, right? There's the West Christian settlement. West Christian case. Maybe it's settling. Maybe they're pushing for this. I'm not sure what's going on with this. Aside from flamethrower, which is what we know. Has any progress been made? Does the current S1 and the delay reflect any progress from West Christian? This is also what I've been trying to find out. Next bridge is due to pay back the meta loan on March 31st, according to the S1. Hence, I, thought maybe something would happen by at least the 31st. So here's this additional loan from Greg McCabe. If McCabe sold some shares, well, that's how he's funding NextBridge, right? He's not going to let NextBridge get away from him. He's going to fund it. That's why maybe he sold some shares. But we don't know that. We can only speculate. Again, there's a discrepancy, but we're not sure if he sold it or maybe he transferred it to somebody else. He does have a son. There's a whole bunch of things that could happen. We can only speculate as a result. Do I look at it as negative? Initially, it might look negative, but again, he converted all of the Wolfbone interest into NextBridge right after, right? So it's not like he doesn't think that this is worth $12 or less, right? Sometimes you need money, but he had 19 million in that pool, and now he has all of the Wolfbone interest converted over to NextBridge. Is there going to be a settlement? Again, I'm not sure. We could go settlement, or we could go trading at this point. Time will tell. Just as when it seems like I have a grasp on the situation, something new pops up. I apologize if this is rather disheveled and still missing pieces and parts. I'm looking for those pieces and parts. But the fact that the delay, the filing for the delay came out, makes me indeed think that the 40 million share offering was a ruse to try and push something further. And quite a few brokerages are saying that something's going to happen soon. Now, is something really going to happen soon? Or are brokers just saying that as, oh, something's going to happen soon? People go, oh, and then they hang up. They leave the broker alone. Instead of giving you busy work now, they just say something's happening soon. Like George R.R. Martin. Oh, it's coming. Those NextBridge shares are coming. Oh, it's coming. And then, so you'll leave them alone. You'll leave the broker alone. Lots of possibilities where things could go at this point. And that's my video for today, and that's what I found out. Okay, guys, that's it for today. Stay warm if you're in Texas or Oklahoma. I will see you soon. Goodbye.